In the previous episode, we saw how Ryu single-handedly made a piece of shit out of the Divine Punisher without receiving a single scratch, shocking everyone, including the angel who was taken aback and got a little interested in Ryu's body. And Aaron acquired a unique class, Summoner, and developed a crush on Ryu, contemplating how to approach him. Now Youngman was really nervous and worried as he watched his phone ring in his hand. It was a call from his friend, the one on whom he had used his authority skill. After staring at his phone screen for a moment, he finally answered it, his voice chilling. He tried to say hello, but his friend cut him off midway and started cursing him, calling him crazy. Youngman, still attempting to act like he didn't know what was going on, asked his friend what he was talking about. On the other side of the phone, his friend was becoming increasingly frustrated. He couldn't hold back any longer and burst into anger, shouting furiously and continuing to curse Youngman. He accused Youngman of playing the innocent card after ruining his entire life. So guys, today's goal is 9,000 likes, and I thank you all from the bottom of my ass, from the bottom of my heart, for supporting this channel. Now let's continue. He asked how Youngman could use the authority skill on his own friends, causing all their stats to decrease by 50%. Now, how would they survive in future rounds? Youngman, attempting to justify himself, replied that he didn't have a choice. Black Scythe himself had given him the order, and if he hadn't followed Black Scythe's command, he would have been killed. So, he claimed he had no choice in the matter. His friend, annoyed and still furious, retorted that Youngman should have chosen to die rather than harm his friends. He said that someone who, just because they were at risk of dying, would harm their friends was no true friend. Youngman hadn't even tried to find a way to convince Black Scythe otherwise or explore alternative options. Instead, he had blindly followed Black Scythe's orders and used the authority skill, indicating that he didn't care about what happened to his crew members and friends. His friend told Youngman that if he wanted to learn about true friendship, he should watch One Piece. And now Youngman could go and die in a gutter because they were no longer friends. Youngman listened to this in silence, but then Youngman, also shouting and tapping his chest while addressing his friend angrily, replied that he was also affected, as his stats got decreased by 50% because he was the zone leader and failed to protect the Crystal Ruin. However, his friend cut him off mid-sentence and started shouting at Youngman again, accusing him of playing the I am also a victim card. His friend emphasized that all of this had happened because Youngman was greedy. Youngman had been obsessed with getting the authority skill to confront Aaron, and this was all he used to talk about. His friend continued to curse Youngman, while Youngman could do nothing but listen with an annoyed and frustrated expression. Then, Youngman tried to say something about figuring out how to get their stats back, but his friend cut him off once more. His friend stated that, as he had mentioned before, Youngman could go and die in a gutter, and from that day on, they were no longer friends. His friend made it clear that Youngman should not call or try to contact him. He warned Youngman that if they ever met in the real world or the other world, he might be tempted to kill Youngman out of anger. With that final warning, his friend ended the call, leaving Youngman standing there silently, glaring at his phone screen. Then, in frustration, Youngman immediately started dialing his other friend's number, stating that he would command all his other buddies to crush the friend who had just called him. However, each and every one of his friends had already blocked his number, and he was unable to contact a single friend. Frustrated, Youngman threw his phone onto his bed and glared at it in anger. He said he didn't need anyone to live his life, as only pigs and sheep roam in groups, and tigers move alone. He considered himself a tiger, even though his stats had decreased by 50%. Grinding his teeth, Youngman vowed to rip each of their body parts one by one, torture them until they begged to die, and then kill each and every one of his buddies, reducing them to pieces of shit. The scene then shifts back to the Imperial Hotel, where the Heavenly Demon is staying. We see the bodyguard bowing his head politely, and the Heavenly Demon, casually dressed in his usual black t-shirt and pants, sitting in his office chair. He complimented the bodyguard for passing the third round and expressed relief that he was alive. However, the bodyguard, maintaining his polite tone, replied that he was just lucky and that he had passed the third round because the monsters were weakened, making it easier to deal with them. The Heavenly Demon then asked the bodyguard about his current level and whether he had managed to obtain a class. The bodyguard replied, still maintaining his polite tone, that he had reached level 11 and had been fortunate enough to acquire the class of Knight. Then the bodyguard said that Aaron had also reached level 11, but she got a rather unique class called Summoner. Hearing the term Summoner, the Heavenly Demon became curious and asked the bodyguard to explain this in detail. The bodyguard raised his hand and, with a serious face, started explaining that, at first, he himself had been surprised. Now, Aaron can summon little creatures called fairies who can cast magical spells. These spells can do things like using skills such as Protection Shield, or even healing minor injuries. Thanks to Aaron's ability, he had been able to successfully hunt and survive the third round. The Heavenly Demon listened in silence. After thinking for some time, The heavenly demon, with a smiling face, said to the bodyguard that he should maintain a close relationship with Aaron because she seemed to have a really interesting class. In the future, she might become a very strong and important person. The heavenly demon also suggested that if the bodyguard wanted to, he could even date Aaron, as she was actually quite a gorgeous lady. So if the bodyguard managed to become affectionate with Aaron, she would always be with them, and their team or forces would grow stronger because they needed more powerful awakeners, as Earth would no longer be peaceful in the future. Upon hearing this, the bodyguard became a little flustered, saying he couldn't do it because he was a virgin and didn't have the courage to be romantic, especially with Aaron. He just lacked the confidence. However, Heavenly Demon, with a chuckle, told him he was just teasing about the dating part, as he hadn't seen the bodyguard laugh in a long time. But seeing the bodyguard getting shy indicated that he had feelings for Aaron. Heavenly Demon suggested that the bodyguard could try dating Aaron. Hearing this, the bodyguard grew a bit worried, realizing that even if he tried, Aaron would likely reject him outright. He was certain of it. Heavenly Demon then asked if the bodyguard was still a man, to which the bodyguard replied that he was, but the problem was different. Aaron still addressed him with a formal tone, calling him Mr. Bodyguard. Heavenly Demon decided to put an end to the playful banter and urged them to discuss the serious matters at hand. The bodyguard bowed his head and began explaining. He first apologized, stating that he had failed to carry out the Heavenly Demon's order to help and approach Black Scythe. Additionally, he hadn't been able to deliver the message that the Heavenly Demon had intended for Black Scythe. The bodyguard took a seat on a sofa and proceeded to recount everything that had occurred in round 3, starting from the death of the musclehead and covering all the events. The Heavenly Demon listened attentively with a serious expression, maintaining silence throughout the narration. After the bodyguard had explained everything, the Heavenly Demon sat in contemplation, placing his hand on his chin. He remarked that based on the description of the bodyguard, the Divine Punisher seemed like a powerful entity, and even he, the Heavenly Demon, wouldn't have been confident enough to face it alone. The atmosphere turned gloomy. Hesitantly, the bodyguard continued, suggesting that individuals like Black Scythe, who were exceptionally strong and self-reliant, often had significant egos, making it nearly impossible to work together with them. The Heavenly Demon remained silent, wearing a serious expression, contemplating the information. He began to think that Black Scythe's stats must exceed their imagination, and his class, Black Scythe, sounded incredibly formidable. So much so that the Heavenly Demon felt a sense of shame, considering himself strong with his unique class, Dark Knight. With determination in his eyes, he wished to meet Black Scythe face to face and engage in a manly conversation. Then, still maintaining his serious expression, the Heavenly Demon replied that it was not the bodyguard's fault, and they couldn't hold him accountable for the mission's failure. The bodyguard once again apologized for falling short in the mission. The Heavenly Demon, while taking a sip of his cold whiskey with his usual serious demeanor, diverted the conversation away from Black Scythe and asked about the results of tracking down the thugs who had attempted to harass Aaron. The bodyguard responded by mentioning that the boss had a nickname, Youngman, although it was unclear if that was his real name. The challenge was that there were thousands of people with the name Youngman worldwide, making it nearly impossible to track them all down. However, assuming he was in his 20s and looked identical to his real-life self, they narrowed the search to Koreans, reducing the pool of suspects to 5 individuals. Upon hearing this, the Heavenly Demon inquired about the current locations of these 5 people. The bodyguard, still a bit nervous, explained that it would take some time to pinpoint their exact home addresses due to the world's current situation, causing delays in the investigation process. Holding his whiskey with a disappointed expression, the Heavenly Demon remarked that he wouldn't be able to locate that individual before round 4, even though he was eager to confront them. The bodyguard refilled the Heavenly Demon's glass with more whiskey and reassured him that there was no need to rush and they could take their time. The Heavenly Demon then asked the bodyguard about his gold reserves, and the bodyguard mentioned that he had 10,000 gold. The Heavenly Demon deemed it sufficient and explained that there was a skill called tracking available in the shop for 20,000 gold, which the bodyguard should learn as soon as he collected enough gold. The bodyguard agreed and expressed his determination to acquire the skill. The bodyguard hesitantly called the Heavenly Demon and mentioned that he had forgotten to mention an important detail. He explained that last month, an individual had purchased a significant number of stocks in the Heavenly Demon's company. The Heavenly Demon, maintaining his usual serious demeanor, inquired about the specific company involved. The bodyguard replied that it was the main company, Heavenly Demon Consulting, which he had been actively working for over the past few weeks. The Heavenly Demon paused for a moment, then set his whiskey glass on the table and asked about the quantity of shares the person had acquired. The bodyguard revealed that the individual had bought all the available shares on the market and now held a 31% stake in the entire company. Upon hearing this, The usually serious expression on the heavenly demon's face gave way to a mild shock. He exclaimed his disbelief, wondering how one person could purchase 31% of an entire company. The heavenly demon sat on the sofa, deep in thought, contemplating the market value of Heavenly Demon Consulting, which stood at 720 million United States dollars. To acquire 31% of the company, someone had invested a staggering 212.8 million United States dollars. He pondered who this wealthy individual could be, and whether it might be one of his brother's actions. After reflecting for some time, his expression turned serious once more, and he concluded that someone who bought such a significant stake likely intended to become directly involved in the company's management. He picked up his phone and instructed his department head to gather information about the person who had acquired the 31% stake in the company. Meanwhile, Ryu lay on his bed, holding his phone, eagerly awaiting a phone call. He knew that even though he wanted to meet the heavenly demon, he couldn't contact them first. He had to demonstrate that he was the real deal. Ryu was confident that the heavenly demon would contact him any moment now, especially after discovering that someone had bought a 31% stake in his company, which had only started a few months ago and wasn't particularly big or well known. Suddenly, Woonie burst into Ryu's room, shouting loudly, "Brother, what level are you?" Ryu, startled by the sudden door slam, dropped his phone and it hit him in the face. With a slightly red face due to the unexpected impact, Ryu asked Woonie why he was asking this out of the blue. Woonie, with a worried expression, explained that there was a kid who acted all high and mighty, bragging that his brother was a high-level player. This kid and his friends kept making fun of Woonie, saying that his brother was already level 11, had a class, and was very strong, while Woonie and his brother were losers. Upon hearing level 11, Ryu let out a sigh and a playful smile, assuring Woonie not to worry because he was higher level than that. Excitedly, Woonie asked Ryu what level he was, and Ryu began to ponder. He considered whether he should tell the truth, knowing that if he did, Woonie might get into trouble again. With a warm smile, Ryu told Woonie that he was level 12. Hearing this, Woonie's eyes filled with excitement and admiration, and he exclaimed that Ryu was the best in the world. He then asked if Ryu also had a class, to which Ryu replied affirmatively, saying he did indeed have a class. Woonie's eyes sparkled with curiosity as he asked about the name of Ryu's class. However, Ryu simply lied down on his bed, going under the blanket, and playfully mentioned that it was a secret. He added that he would tell Woonie everything when the right time came. Frustrated, Woonie insisted that there should be no secrets between brothers, but Ryu, claiming fatigue, said he needed to sleep and promised to tell Woonie later. Annoyed, Woonie left the room, stating that he would definitely find out Ryu's class when he woke up, and he closed the door in frustration. Then, as Ryu was about to sleep, his phone started to ring, and it was the call of the heavenly demon. Ryu picked up the call, and the heavenly demon introduced himself as the CEO of the company. He inquired if it was a suitable time to talk. Ryu, with a slight smile, decided to play the role of a naive beginner who had just started investing in the stock market. He thought that the more he appeared like a pushover, the more the heavenly demon would let his guard down, making his plan go smoothly. So Ryu replied that it was indeed the right time to talk. The heavenly demon, with a polite tone, asked if Ryu had purchased a large amount of stock in his company, and Ryu pretended to be startled and nervous as he confirmed that he had. The heavenly demon then informed Ryu that, with his recent purchase, he now owned 31% of the company. He expressed his desire to meet Ryu and suggested going for a meal. He proposed a lunch meeting on Friday. Ryu, after a moment of thinking, remembered that on Friday he had an important task. He was planning to make the person who kidnapped Wani on his 7th life regret it, so he politely declined the offer for Friday, citing his prior commitments. Instead, he suggested Saturday, which the heavenly demon agreed to. With that, the phone call ended. Ryu, now wearing a confident smile, muttered to himself, "Tomorrow is Friday, and it's the day when Wani's kidnapper will face justice. I'll make so many holes in that bastard's body that he won't know from where to fart and from where to take a breath." So with this, the episode ends here. Write part 10 inches in the comments. Thanks for watching.